What if your favorite horror movie wasn't actually fiction, but foreshadowing? Door knockouts, welcome to another episode of Thoughts That Keep Me Up at Night with Kin. I'm still Kin. Last week, we kicked off October by introducing the very first Sleepy Sessions, a brand new segment of our show where we sit down with the voices that help us reshape the way we see the world. The first, the CEO and founder of P0Plastic, working to eliminate the ghoul of one-use waste from our lives. The premiere is a little bit different, going live on Sundays at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time rather than Thursdays. So if you missed it, make sure to circle back and check that out after this episode. Tonight, we are dimming the lights and curling up in our favorite sweaters because the thought haunting me this week is, are horror movies more real than we think? As per usual, we're going to break this down in our 4-act cycle, but instead of breaking it down in where it came from, how it evolved, why it matters now, and what's next, I'm going to break it down into 4 different categories of horror. I want to touch on pandemic horror, post-apocalyptic horror, sci-fi dystopia, and of course, nuclear and cosmic horror. But first, a quick recall to our sponsor, the monster-mauling heroes at P0Plastic, making creepily eco-friendly swaps easy and scarily affordable. The link's obviously lurking in the description below, but I'm pretty sure I can scare you into making a difference with the details later. Okay, imagine this. Zombies clawing at the windows. Cities reduced to rubble. Machines outsmarting their makers. And the shadow of a mushroom cloud on every horizon. These aren't just cheap thrills. They're reflections of our deepest fears outside of the theater. Picture it. The streets are silent. A cough echoes through a crowded room. And suddenly, the world tilts. Movies like 28 Days Later and World War Z are not just about the undead. They're about what happens when trust dies first. Once upon a time, zombies were just myths from Haitian folklore. Corpses reanimated, stripped of will, stumbling towards you, reeking of the stench of decomposition. Naturally, the cinema made them symbols of infection, and governments scrambling to contain what they can no longer control. We don't really have to imagine what mass panic looks like. We lived it. Empty shelves, locked borders, and conspiracy bleeding faster than any virus. That's the real horror. Not just bodies that don't come back, but societies that don't either. Personally, the pandemic genre is one of my greatest curiosities, and also worst fears. Something about being forced to face death reincarnate is fascinating and also horrifying. Would I last? Probably not. I give it 2-3 months tops. And even that's being generous. So all you doomsday preppers and collapse specialists watching this better be weighing in the comments with your expertise, okay? You may be the difference we all need. Now, if the infected don't quite keep you up at night, imagine a world where the system itself collapses and survival is the only law left. The end rarely comes with a bang. Sometimes it's a slow unravel. Power grids flicker. Storms roll in. Shelves go unstocked. Longer and longer. The road, the purge, the day after tomorrow. They all ask the same question. When the world ends, who do you become? Collapse stories are older than the scripture. Flood myths, fire myths, the end of humanity. Each culture whispers their own version of the final day. And in modern times, it doesn't look all that different. It's still about governments failing, nature striking back, and neighbors turning against neighbors. We see glimpses of this every single time disaster strikes. Hurricanes, blackouts, pandemic lockdowns. Some rush to help, others hunker down. That is the duality of collapse. Self-resilience versus collective survival. I won't lie though, the post-apocalyptic genre is honestly one of my favorites. I love the idea of stripping away all the frilly bullshit and making us come face to face with who we really are. But the fact that we humans have a dark side is obviously not lost on me, which is why I'm wondering, if everything as you knew it just suddenly evaporated, what would your priorities be and why? Be sure to let me know in the comments. Before we walk any further into the dark, we need to discuss real-world survival skills with our sponsor. B0 Plastic makes eco-friendly swaps easier than magic. All products sold are 100% environmentally friendly, vetted by the CEO and founder to ensure credibility and quality, made and produced in the USA, and accessible as well as affordable. Some of those daily products include things like toothpaste and dental floss, laundry detergent and lint balls, dish soap and dishcloths, and trash and waste bags. If that sounds like your cauldron of witch's brew, then at the end of this episode, feel free to cruise on down to the spells casted below, click on the link provided, and use code KIN, that's K-I-N, for 10% off your very first order. It's a really easy way to support yourself, our planet, my sponsor, and this podcast. So if you decide to give it a stir, I really appreciate your contribution on behalf of B0 Plastic, myself, and the still living. A doll that won't turn off. A phone that knows you better than you know yourself. A drone that no longer needs orders. Stories like Megan, Black Mirror, and the Terminator remind us the scariest monsters don't actually come from crypts. They come from codes. The feat of machines literally goes back centuries. From the first loom that replaced workers to the AI deepfakes and slop. The dread isn't that we'll just lose control, but that we won't even notice once we already have. Privacy stripped away one click at a time. Jobs vanishing before laws can catch up. Technology humming along while we quietly convince ourselves that it's still serving us. That is not science fiction, my friend. That's just another Thursday. Sci-fi dystopia is one of those horror genres that just hits different, especially since we're in the midst of such a chilling reality at this very moment. I'm telling you, it is more tempting now to live off grid and be self-reliant than it has ever been. Of course, I'm not a hermit, nor am I a utilitarian. That said, I feel it's also fair to say that I will always be teetering on the edge between my self-interest and the protection of others. Yet, all of this pales in comparison to the darkest shadow of all, the end we've already nearly written for ourselves. A flash in the sky and a silence deeper than any scream. Cloverfield, Godzilla, annihilation. These stories ask what happens when the world itself becomes unrecognizable. The first atomic bomb didn't just end a war. It began an entire genre. And from then on, every mushroom cloud we saw on the screen was a heavy looming reminder of the despair and the possibility hanging over us. The fear lingers. Nuclear threats are resurfacing. Wars are teetering on global edge. Governments are not just looking to the ground, but also to the stars, seeking a way to weaponize the very sky. Nuclear and cosmic horror isn't actually a genre to me. It's a cold and blatant reality. Aliens, political alignment, disagreement on beliefs, just a few of the ways we've been pushing ourselves to the brink. Every single time that a person in power exercises that power through fear and control, we take another step in the very wrong direction. The worst part isn't that we'll all be destroyed. It's that we may not even understand how until it's already over. Short and sweet, but spine-chilling all the same. Let's do a quick recap. We talked about post-apocalyptic horror. We talked about pandemic horror. We talked about sci-fi dystopia. And of course, nuclear and cosmic horror. What did we think of our little horror marathon? Personally, I learned that on the screen they're stories. In real life, they could be warnings. So the next time you curl up on the couch, snuggle under your blanket, and get ready to watch your favorite horror flick, try to remember that there is a chance that what you're seeing is more real than you think. Speaking of horror stories, I would like to remind you about my brand new newsletter. If you go to Thoughts That Keep Me with Kin at SUBSTACK.com, you can subscribe to my newsletter for free and have access to behind the scenes content, poll ideas, and updates of the new episode drops. Remember to check out Be Zero Plastic if you are interested in zero waste in a one-stop shop. And thank you again to Be Zero Plastic and all of you for making this podcast happen. Next week, we explore a topic a little bit closer to home for me: ghost searching for the cryptids of the Inner Mountain West. Remember to subscribe if you have not already. It helps me and the channel more than you know, and we deeply appreciate it. Also, hit that little notification bell if you'd like a reminder of when the new episode drops. We have a new episode every Thursday at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, and any sleepy session interview on Sunday at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. You can obviously find this podcast here on YouTube, and it will very soon be available on Spotify. I can't wait to see you next week. Until then, say hey to the dark side.